my needlecast hoodie to wear to pretend to be the Fray.
To pretend to be the Fray. We're actually lucky that we've even got any news subjects this week, Schultzy, given that we didn't pay the newsman on time. He was upset.
Welcome to Game of Nodes, a weekly podcast on the Cosmos, brought to you by independent validator teams. I nearly got away with it. I nearly managed to say it.
We're not just the Cosmos anymore. We changed a little bit that we're independent validator teams. Ditto.
Mm-hmm.
Very good impression of the Fray or Dr. Fray.
Hotel room's not messy enough.
What your hotel room's not messy enough?
I mean, the Fray's room, his backdrop's always quite messy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You need to hang shit around the place. A couple of guitar amps.
I've got a load of conference merch all over my bed.
You need some floor lighting. Can you just ignite a nuclear fuse right next to your face, just for the correct effect?
No, the lighting in this hotel room doesn't allow me to do that. Yeah, so I'm live from Istanbul and Cosmoverse, where I know nothing that's gone on because I've basically been busy doing some AA DAO work. So you guys will have to tell me what's happened here.
So for the viewers and the listeners, we're joined today with Bendy and Funky, and Schultzy and myself for the regular team, and we have Dr. Fray and Uncle Dad are on their way back to their respective places from the where were they? SmartCon?
Yeah, I think it was SmartCon over in Barcelona, right?
Yeah, that sounds nice. So it's been a big week of conferences for everyone who can get to them. Not anyone from over this side of the planet because they're too far away. So, Schultzy, what was your excuse?
Well, I had Erdeman go to Istanbul.
That's right.
So if Erdeman's going to go, I don't want to go as well. And I just got back from my honeymoon. So flying right back, a week after not even a week after I got back, that's unacceptable. Not working with that. No way.
No, you just get in trouble for that type of malarkey. I might have said this last week. My partner's been trying to get us to go away on the weekend, and I'm like, hold the phone. We just went elsewhere for a week. So you're gonna have to wait a month. There's no way that I am putting on weekend shit again for at least a month.
I've been exhausted. It has been about a week since I've been back, and I'm having a hard time recovering. I think it's I just crested 31, right? Which means I think I no longer recover from jet lag as well. 30, you can still do it. 31, I think, is when that turnover happens, and I'm feeling it.
Yeah, I think I've only really started to experience the jet lag recently, in the last 5 years or so. But I mean, jet lag's on a different level when you're Australian because you're on a plane for 17 hours that is going to get you exactly in the place you don't need to be for a time-wise. So it's always a big adjustment. Last time when I came back from March, when I was over there, it took me a week to come back to normal. I was just shot to shit. It was terrible.
Yeah, I'm at the point where I'm still waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning each night, and it was only a 9-hour changeover. 4 or 5 hours.
Ride with it. That's a great time to wake up.
Yeah, so I was gonna say 4 or 5 a.m. isn't too bad. So I've been using that time to do work early because most of my team is either in Central Europe or on the East Coast. So we are always way far off in time. So this has been good for are able to work together. But also, like, my wife wakes up then like 5 hours later, and she's like, "Wow, like you've already been up for like your entire day." And so then like by 3 p.m. I'm like winding down, and that's the tough bit right now.
On the weekends, unless we have a plan to do something, I'm like getting up at 4 or 5 a.m. and then the missus gets up at like midday. I'm like, half the fucking day is gone. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
but then I'll go to bed at like 8 o'clock and she'll come to bed at like 1 a.m. Like, what are you doing? It's nighttime. You can't do anything. Can't work. So, yeah, I mean, because life is just working and sleeping, right? So,
That's exactly what I believe it is.
So Bendy has just come back from Cosmoverse to his hotel room. He was partying at an after party, and he was telling us that he was going to get into his minibar, but it looks like he's opted for the water. Probably already had a few brewskis. So hopefully he's like half charged for some hot takes while we roll through the news a little bit later on.
Yeah, whenever we hit your news corner, I'm ready with like underinformed, over-opinionated views.
The news corner does not exist in that form anymore. I've vetoed it.
What was Cosmoverse as empty as like the photo showed? Because a lot of people are talking about how Cosmoverse was like the keynote. There's only like half the seats full or fewer, and a lot of people are talking about it not seeming very full. Was it actually that empty?
The auditorium was, but like there's I've forgotten the exact number. I want to say it's 1,300, 1,400 people were actually in attendance. But what it is there's like all sorts of different rooms. So most people aren't bothering with the keynotes because they're going to workshops. There was just like a load of food and drink out in the kind of Osmosis networking area. People are kind of like, it's more like, yeah, I don't know. Like it's the kind of conference where people are in about 8, 9 different rooms, loads of hallways. Like everywhere you went, it was chock up with people. But
did that feel like a feature or a bug? Do you think? Do you think maybe they could have scheduled those other other types of things, like maybe if they broke up the keynotes into like a few hours here and a few hours there, and then schedule those other things in between?
I think that the kind of venue we were in was challenging because I think the ballroom that the main talks were in was massive, as if you were going to do the whole event in there. And then you also had loads of these breakout rooms. And the breakout rooms were probably the most successful thing. Like we had, there was an AEZ specific room. We had Neutron and Stride at the AA DAO, representing the hub. And then we also had Noble in there, despite the fact they're not quite in the AEZ yet. But like we had like some sort of gigabrain round table things in there with like 30, 40, 50 people. And it's like, and then everyone's trying to get into there because they suddenly hear that like, oh, Jihan and Sunny and Spade and whoever are all having this kind of like really intense thing. And you can't put that on stage. It's not going to work in that way. It's like this, more organic thing.
Like so a condo at the pub type thing.
Yeah. So I think like what you really probably need is a venue with like breakout rooms that are a little bit closer to the main room, and the main room to be able to be a bit more like to be sized down so that it always feels full. Because actually, like you probably have 400, 500, 600 people in there, and it still feels quite empty. Because I was moderating a panel, fireside chat, whatever you want to call it, with 2 of the tokenomics guys today, and I was like, oh, there's not a lot of people here, and then I kind of was like, well, actually, there's like 50 rows of chairs, however many people on each row. There's quite a lot of people in this room, but they're very spaced out. It doesn't look great on camera. I think there's a kind of optics thing with that, where if you can just do a better seating plan, then it works a bit better. But that was kind of, that was one of those where that tokenomics panel was a fun one because it got moved in terms of its time to accommodate the Stride news, which I guess we'll come to at some point. And we got moved for that, and then Sito couldn't do it, which was the original plan because he was having to prep for the Stride stuff, and so I had to do it. And then I had to fill another 15-20 minutes of time because the keynote that was meant to be on in that time slot didn't happen, and was just kind of told, could you just stall for a bit? It's like, yeah, I can chat. And then, you know, as you guys know, I just talk a lot.
So it sounds like that the cameras looked kind of so-called empty was almost a feature in the sense that what people were doing is they were going and doing things that were more active and they were less passive. If they're going to the keynote, that's passive consumption, right? But if they're going to the side rooms, it sounds like they're actively engaging. And so while the appearance was that the throne room, if you will, was empty, what that actually means is people were off doing things that like would actively better the situation, the area, the conference.
I think so. That's certainly my take. My sense of things as someone in one of those rooms for most of the time was it was pretty consistently busy. A lot of people came up to me to kind of like just talk to me about what they're building, how they can get money from me, which, you know, is inevitable because I'm like one of the, you know, 10 people in the conference with actual cash. But, you know, it was kind of cool because actually you had, like, it's much better to be doing that kind of, whether it's Yorping or shilling, depending on which way you want to go.
Jump up, shill down.
But it's better that like those people are doing that than they're just sitting there listening to a keynote, right? So I think that kind of what's happening, and certainly my experience from having worked in a kind of conferencing venue, is that this has reached a period of maturity where the majority of work needs to be done at the bar or you know, over coffee, and that the actual program of events is almost meaningless. That really what people want to do is engage with individuals. They want to have the conversations they want to have. They want to do the workshops. They want to do the hackathons. They want to do all of that. And they're not very interested in being lectured to for 20 minutes, half an hour.
Were you at the previous Cosmoverse or no?
No, this is my first ever crypto event. This is my first time meeting crypto people in real life.
Ah, that's cool. Awesome.
It is cool.
Yeah, I had a great time. Like I like, yeah, and it's kind of fun because, you know, I hadn't met any of my colleagues from the DAO in real life, so that was kind of awesome. We all went for dinner tonight, and you know, that was really nice. It was really nice to have time with people and like actually kind of, you know, see how tall some people are, right? Like, but also like, yeah, I've worked really closely with some of the people involved in Neutron, some of the guys on Stride, and then we're in a room together and we're actually like able to just, you know, shoot the shit and kind of get a real sense of who people are. And, you know, like, yeah, I mean, it did nothing for my imposter syndrome, where I suddenly am like, oh shit, I'm at a thing where, oh, so yeah, my big imposter syndrome moment was because the hub's the lead sponsor, through us. And so there's the kind of like speakers and sponsors dinner on the first night, which, and they were like, oh, could someone from the DAO speak? And Yusuf was like, oh, Bendy will do it. He's good at talking. And I was like, I've now got to do like a 3-minute chat to like every single significant person in this ecosystem. And like, what do I, who I'm just, you know, community member pleb. What do I say? So that was quite fun.
Is this the drop chains moment?
Yeah. Well, I couldn't say blockchain.
I saw Rarmug break you over the coals for it.
Well, I mean, like I put the video out. I was like, imagine if I could say the word blockchain. But yeah, my opening line in that was, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the annual gathering of the cartel.
Perfect.
I was really interested to see what percentage of Cosmos had a sense of humor.
How many people did? Because I imagine that would be very divisive.
I would say 10% had a sense of humor.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Okay.
So yeah. But like by the end, it was fine. It was only 3 minutes. It's fine. You know, if AA DAO now doesn't get a second mandate, it's basically because of me, I think. All these devs would be like, don't talk about the cartel. But that was quite fun. But yeah, like it did not, like I was just like, oh shit, like I'm meant to pretend that I'm like significant. In fact, all it is that I'm English and therefore, you know, the one that's put up to speak.
So okay, so
you just sound so pretty.
Yeah, exactly. You're English, therefore you sound so smart. So what did you do previously? So if you hadn't been to a conference before, how long have you been in the Cosmos ecosystem? Because obviously you've been in chats. We've seen you for the longest time, but it surprises me since Cosmos has events in Europe fairly frequently, probably 2 or 3 a year, right? So I'm curious why?
Wasn't my job before.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So was AA Dive the first thing you that brought you into like as a really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so my background is I got into crypto just like what year would that be? So yeah, like early, like January 21, right? And then sort of was on Coinbase and was like, oh, just look at some of these other things that aren't Bitcoin because maybe Bitcoin, maybe there's other value elsewhere, right? Other things are going to be a bit more risk, but they might go up more. And I was kind of just reading like their little synopses, and I was like, oh, this Cosmos thing is like kind of interesting because it talks about the fact that not one chain specifically is going to win. And I was like, well, that makes sense to me. Like, why in the history of like everything in the world, nothing has ever had just like one winner in a kind of form of things getting advanced, right? There's always been like multiples. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. So I bought some Atom, and then I saw Wolf tweeting about make sure you get it off centralized exchanges, put it in a thing, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, right? Self-custody. And I was like, oh, I better do this because there's some sort of thing and people are talking about the word airdrop is being thrown around. And so I got some Juno and I got some Osmosis because of doing that. And I was kind of like, oh, and I got progressively more interested in stuff and just like watch this show, follow people on Twitter, da 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 da.
That
and then-
Osmosis airdrop.
This show, that was a mistake.
Yeah, that Osmosis airdrop, I'll say was a really great airdrop. I remember I want to say like 10 atoms staked, and I am getting like $800 worth of Osmosis, and that made me so excited to join the ecosystem.
Yeah,
granted, I was in it before, but go ahead.
No. All I was going to say is like, yeah, I got over $1,000 for less than like I must have. Maybe I had 100 in there. Like I can't remember, but like
the quadratic curve thing was a good idea. With that,
yeah,
it was great.
But yeah, and then all that happened after that is that I continued to do kind of what I do in the chat on this show, where I just talked at people, and then eventually they reply to me.
Allow me to talk at you. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're in a public forum. I'm just going to shout at you until you acknowledge my existence. And then one day I got really pissed off with something in Cosmos and DM'd Zaki and just was like, I'm really pissed off about this. Is there like my background's in marketing and comms? Is there anything I can do to help? And he was like, oh, weirdly, I was just setting up a Telegram group. Let me drop you into that. And I was suddenly in this weird Telegram group with like, again, a lot of serious players. And I kind of was like, oh, and then like I tried to be helpful. And what then came out of that eventually was when Yusuf was setting up the accelerator, he was like, I need a marketing and comms person. Do you want to talk? And I could do it on top of my day job because it's kind of a part-time role. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant because now all the time that I already spend doing crypto stuff, I actually get some money for. And
monetize your knowledge.
Yeah, like I've been working in marketing and comms for like 16, 17 years. I know my stuff to an extent, as much as anyone does.
It's a great story, Benny. It's very similar to mine. Like it's wonderful how in Web3 you can jump in, and if you just are a curious person, you ask lots of questions, you want to be helpful, you provide value to others, like somebody's going to offer you a job, and it's only a matter of time. So that's really cool hearing your backstory. Very similar to mine.
I think if you have like some personal motivation and just get involved, there's a place for you somewhere. Like,
yeah,
and it's not all developers. Like there's Bendy's marketing, and there's any number of different jobs for different kinds of industries in this industry. It's just a matter of being active, hunting people down, expressing your point of view, getting in there. I mean, Schultzy, and you're validated too, Funky, and I probably all, you get nowhere in this industry if you don't ask the question, and if you're not persistent and looking for the right connections, and if you just and it's definitely, I think one of the things in the validator space, and sorry Bendy, I know you're not a validator, is that I think some operators think that this is a mountain to conquer rather than like a better together thing. So, I know Schultz and I subscribe to the, teamwork makes the dream work type situation. We, there's a group of us that help each other out in the stack and make sure that, we're all performing. And sometimes that's like, giving other people a reality check and saying, hey, look, you're fucking up over here. Maybe have a look at that.
Yeah.
Or even some encouragement. Oh, you're doing a great job over there. How can we sort of do better like you? And, that type of environment rather than like out in the cold by yourself behind the gates, trying to just conquer everything by yourself.
I feel like I've had this conversation multiple times this week because trying to work out what I can say and what I can't without kind of just being like saying that certain people are ourselves. But basically, a lot of the hot topic here was what is the AEZ to do with, like, is it just the change on replicated security, or is it anything that interacts with Atom? Because obviously, there's the osmosis one amount of liquidity. But I had a conversation with Dean from Agoric, where he's sort of saying, IST is obviously in the Atom economic zone because it has Atom as a thing that you can classify as IST with, and he was getting more and more aggrieved about this, I think, because I think that he felt that the resistance to acknowledging that was people kind of wanting to be behind the gates, and he was like, where's the reciprocal nature and where's the cooperation? And kind of,
that's a really interesting take, though. That's not one that I've really heard. The one I've always heard is, you're in the Atom economic zone if you are like ICS. But it makes sense that if you are directly relating, like Stride pre-ICS, under that definition, you could argue was part of the Atom economic zone, and that also wouldn't be wrong. But anyway, continue.
No. So I've got a series of slightly wobbly thoughts that are definitely not helped by the beers, but the kind of the main thing with me was my thought around this was just like the reality is that Atom will do better if IST gets some adoption, and IST will do better if Atom does well. Like there's the alignment is there, and if everyone just spends their time shouting each other, and sort of whether that's on the IST side feeling like they're being neglected and therefore being annoyed about that, or on the Atom side of like putting up walls, that's not actually going to help anyone. And if everyone gets defensive or aggressive, either way actually, then it kind of doesn't help. So what I was saying is, look, I think the reality is that the chains that I consider to be in the Atom economic zone are the ones that have some sort of social consensus that says they are, and that means that they've passed a vote on governance. So that at the moment is around replicated security. But if that was around protocol-owned liquidity, or some sort of loan, or some sort of other financially structured deal where you do a token swap, you do something else, I would argue that is an indicator that you're in the AEZ. At the moment, we're just so early in it that it has a narrow meaning. And if we are rigid with that, and that kind of was one of the things I was saying in my 3 minutes on stage at the very beginning of the conference, where I was saying, like, one of the things people talk about at Cosmosverse is the good vibes, but then like they just go away after like a month, after the honeymoon period. So can we keep them going for like 2 months instead? And that would be like twice as much value out of Cosmoverse as we currently get.
So further to the the AEZ stuff, I think that if people understand that the AEZ is not an organization that you get inducted into, it's just a term that people use to describe, the closely related entities that are working in the same direction as Atom, then, it becomes more evident then that you don't necessarily need to be in the ICS to be part of the AEZ. You just need to be contributing to that ecosystem in a way, or in partnership in a way with that community to better both of your protocols. And then you're like de facto part of the AEZ. I mean, it's not like a gain membership or anything.
No, it's like this sounds shit. The AEZ is more of a feeling than a contract.
It's a vibe, man. It's a vibe.
It's those good vibes. Yep.
But it's like, what I would say is that I really distinguish between, say, so IST or USK, where there's just some use for Atom that people can choose to do or not do. That is completely different from if the Atom governance had a vote where it went, okay, we're going to use 1 million Atom to do this with them, and they're going to do this with it, and here's a kind of agreement. Because that is saying, like, it's not just, because otherwise it's like the null zone or the Schultzy zone where you've just chosen to do something as a user with your tokens, with someone who gave you the option to do it. So when there've been chats today about, like, Osmosis is obviously in the AEZ because it's the thing that's done all this stuff with Atom liquidity. It's like, no, that's all Osmosis, and Osmosis chose to do that, and people chose to do it on Osmosis, and that's fine. Like that, I'm not dismissing what they've done. They're a brilliant protocol. They have been the biggest thing for IBC, totally. But does that make them part of the AEZ? No, it doesn't. But if their proposal that's currently on the forum for, like, a bajillion Atom for protocol owned liquidity were to pass, then I would say, yeah, I would. For me, that's what I would say is like enough of a signal that I would include them in an AEZ thing if I was organizing it as the marketeer. I think the other interesting thing about the AEZ is simply creating the term has created so much demand for having it. People are like, I want to be in because you've created a club. And like 9 months ago, no one wanted to touch Atom with a shitty stick.
That's a really interesting point. Yeah. Like now that it's become a thing, people want to be part of the thing. I mean, in effect, the imagining of it was Atom 2.0, but Atom 2.0 was not nearly as catchy as the AEZ, right?
Yeah.
Like it didn't have a good enough marketer, apparently.
It's like they took the non-shitty bits of the Atom 2.0 and called it something else.
Yeah, I mean, imagine how giga brain you have to be to do that.
Let me ask you guys this: what does this mean, like with the AEZ and obviously more chains starting to wanting to signal for ICS and wanting to make that transition? What does this mean for mesh security? Because I think it's funny that, like, Sonny had his little graphic with like Osmosis being part of this AEZ, but he was also the one kind of pitching mesh security at like the Shared Security Summit back in Denver. Like, is mesh security starting to fall to the wayside and now more just pushing toward the ICS idea?
I think that mesh security is still definitely coming.
Okay.
The more so. Quite a topic. So with the way we've currently seen ICS roll out, you're going to see us vote no on most chains that join in. So for example, Composable is going to try and become ICS here soon. And I guarantee you we're voting no. And the reason for that is there's so much reliance on individual team output on the performance of that addition. And Composable is wildly unstable, just wildly unstable. And it's not easy to keep track of what's happening with it. It's not easy to like interact with in general. There's a variety of reasons for that. But what that leads to is if they try to become an ICS chain, that burden then falls on every single validator, and that shouldn't happen. With mesh security, it's opt-in. And that I think is the really big difference.
Okay.
Yeah. So we as AA DAO have co-funded some of the mesh stuff because it's definitely part of the future picture. I think the other thing that's slightly being slept on because it's not really made a lot of progress is the opt-in replicated security. As far as I know, there have been some particular issues about how you solve the security problems of if only a certain number of people opt in. How is that chain actually secure? How does it reach consensus? But I believe that one of the teams working on the tokenomics research for us proposed a solution around that to Jihan, who is now going to kind of investigate it further, but thinks there is a possibility of solving that. And that's kind of interesting because then you could do mesh and you could connect with loads of people, but if you just want to get security from the hub and you can be convincing to particular validators, then you can still get that security. And that means that someone like Lavender 5 don't have to secure Composable if they think that risk doesn't suit them, but Composable could still get hub security from people that are willing to take that choice. And then it becomes a market where, for me as a delegator, I can look at who are these chains supporting and do I want to be in receipt of those staking rewards and fees, etc. And I think that's kind of interesting because I think at the moment there's not a lot of ways to distinguish validators unless you're really deep in the game. So I think ICSV2 is, I think the last time I spoke on here, or maybe the time before that, I kind of was like, I think this is pointless. I've slightly been talked around into thinking it has a purpose. But ultimately, I think that mesh is probably going to be the future for a lot of Cosmos. And I think that Atom will be the primary beneficiary of mesh because it is the thing that most people want to connect to just purely because of its market cap. So yeah, really, I think that's brilliant. I also think that Atom, because of Stride, will become super desirable. It will have skin in the game with a lot of tokens, even if they're not meshing to it, because of the way that liquid staking tokens are so pervasive at the moment. So I think that's kind of interesting too.
Can you talk a little bit about the Stride and Atom
I was curious.
image? Is it? I haven't looked too much at the proposal, and I haven't seen too many talks about it. I've just kind of seen secondhand people's thoughts. Is their idea to completely take down the chain and just push all of that to Atom? Or is the idea to continue doing Stride as a chain, but move over to only using Atom and basically burn all Stride in favor of just using Atom?
So I missed some of the talk, and I haven't read the proposal. So I will be talking from a complete picture of ignorance, other than a bit of a chat that I had with someone yesterday, because I needed to talk, when they wanted to take our slot, I was like, well, you need to tell me why. So, which then gave me 24 hours where I was like, I know the biggest news in the ecosystem and I literally can't tell anyone because they will know it's me.
That's awesome.
So as I understand it, it's to move to a tokenless chain, which I think is better personally than moving it onto the hub.
Okay, so you mean because? Wow, this is a lot to unpack. How would that work for people that are currently staking to governors, right?
You get more Atom. Whatever price that deal got structured, your Stride would become Atoms.
Interesting. Okay.
I think there's a lot that I haven't got into the detail of it. I know that Riley and Aiden are this is very early in conversation and we want to get as much feedback as possible. And I think one of the problems with that is I think it's completely genuine knowing those guys, but I also think that the community want to be told something concrete so that they have something to work with. And I think navigating this kind of merger and acquisition stuff in a on-chain governed world is, as far as I know, breaking new ground. And I think that makes it really hard to do it well. And I've got a lot of sympathy and patience for everyone involved in it, because I think that it's, whatever you do, people are going to be finding it difficult. And I think that like how you negotiate a price for this kind of stuff is difficult. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion yet, other than I really, really, really love Stride. I think it's a phenomenal team that have done a great job. They've had some of the best product market fit in the ecosystem. I think they're one of the strongest teams, best shippers. And, you know, my Atom bag is bigger than my Stride bag, so maybe an acquisition is good from my point of view because I get more exposure. But
so here's what I'll add to that. Stride is one of the few tokens that I've really bought into because of basically what you said. It's a really fantastic team, such an amazing product market fit. Secret's another one, but there's so much secret difficulty. I'm not going to get into that. I'll continue with Stride. I think that with Stride moving to ICS, they devalued their Stride token. And I think that, quote unquote, being bought out by Atom in almost any vision it turns into would be a good thing.
I probably agree, and I probably agree it's good on both sides. I think the key thing that has to happen is that at the moment, Stride's biggest kind of customers are Atom stakers, and I don't see how that really works once you are owned by Atom, as it were. I think that kind of, there's some sort of weird circle stake thing going on that's even weirder than it is at the moment. So I'm not quite sure how that works. But I think that in reality, I think there's 1-2 significant chain launches coming up where I believe that Stride are going to be involved very early. I think there's going to be huge amounts of these tokens going to be liquid staked. And I think that that's going to be super bullish for people that hold Stride, or if Stride is Atom at that point, Atom. I think there's genuine revenue to be made. And revenue is like, nothing makes revenue at the moment.
I guess my question right now would be, so if they were bought out by Atom, would it then be that all of the Stride tokens would then go straight to the validators and stakers? Like, so there wouldn't be Stride stakers anymore. Like governors, I'm sure would go away, because I don't think it would make too much sense for them not to go away. Does that mean that all Atom holders would then effectively become... I imagine Stride is like an ETF, right? You buy Stride, you stake Stride, and you get a bunch of other tokens. So it's like it's in effect an ETF. So would that then make it as each Atom staker an even larger ETF holder in a sense? If so, I mean, that's awesome. That would be super cool.
So at the moment, I think it's 15% of Stride's revenue goes to Atom stakers. I think it's that. It might be 20, but I think it's 15. And I think then what would happen is that 100% of revenue would go to Atom stakers. Now, I'm not super keen on that, in that I think that some of the revenue should actually go directly to the team, because I think that creates incentivization for the team to continue working. I thought it was really dumb when on Stride, when we voted to give 100% of revenue to Stride stakers. I thought that was stupid. I thought, no, how do you grow your treasury? How do you continue to fund future development? I understand why stakers should be paid. I'm not saying that, but I also think like you could have taken, 95% and still left the team, the treasury growing and the foundation getting some income so that you continue to fund it. I think this is a wider issue for Atom, and therefore for Stride, and to an extent Neutron, is how do you pay developers? And Gnome from Binary is working on some stuff as part of our tokenomics stuff, where you basically have a kind of allocated budget across the year, and it's kind of topped up block by block, and you kind of, as governance, you decide where you want to allocate that to, and that makes a lot of sense from my point of view. But I think that the revenue models are kind of really interesting around that. And again, I think that as just a staker, you need to take a kind of longer term vision, because there is no point you extracting all the liquidity so that you can't fund teams for the long term, because the main value add that Stride has for Atom is that phenomenal team. Now, I'm fairly certain that there will be people who will say, well, devs make loads of money, da 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 da. Fine, but they are also the future of that protocol. So what do you do? And if you can't get the alignment of interest right, then what we're actually going to do is buy Stride. These guys become multimillionaires and they walk away. Like that's not great.
I guess that's a mic drop moment right there.
Do you think that's part of the motivation for that proposal? Is, you know, to monetize their holdings quickly to something that's pretty stable or stable-ish?
I mean, they still have a huge amount of Stride, right? Like most of the delegations right now are from the Stride treasury, so they're still getting a huge amount of income. I can't imagine it's so one-sided as they are looking to get liquidity quickly, as what happened a couple of weeks ago.
So the thing with the app chains seems to be that, you know, they have their day for a while, and then it is to date like pretty like most of the chain, and this is partly a function of the bear market, but you know, after their day has passed, the value of that token goes down a lot, because at the end of the day, like, how much value is there in most app chains? If, you know, they got a lot of tokens, they got platforms that generate not much revenue. So like at the end of the day, what's that worth? And in terms of Stride, well, I guess its value to its holders is more or less based on the tokens of which they get revenue from, right? In terms of like that little bit from the top when they do the you know, when they take the inflation from all the chains that they're running on, and then they take their little bit of cream off the top and then distribute that to the holders of the token, and that's basically the revenue model. But like, how will that play out in the long term? Like for a chain that has, what I think I saw somewhere that at the moment they've got a revenue of maybe 700 grand. I think that was in some of the comments on that Commonwealth Schultzy. So like, you know, that's trading at 10 times the revenue at the moment. That's probably not too unreasonable if that's coming out to the stakers. But, you know, given the long-term trends of most other app chains, maybe, I'm not saying it's a cash grab, but maybe it's a way to like solidify that value into something a little bit more stable. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. I mean, of all things in the cosmos, Atom has proven itself to be the most stable. The next best thing is probably Osmosis, and it's down 35 times from its all-time high, whereas Atom is down 4, maybe. The reality is go ahead.
About 5.
5. Okay, 5. The reality is,
I mean, Atom is similar to like a lot of the other bigger L1s. You know, those top 50 L1s are like traded. Well, actually, the top 50 is not even all L1s, but like the L1s within that top 50 are all traded as if they are like more or less, you know, the cream of the L1s, right? Which arguably most of them probably are. And I think that I think they're traded like on you know, on the basis of like signals and stuff rather than their actual worth as a chain, if that makes sense. I think in my mind they hold their value better because people are like signal trading from charts and stuff like that, rather than saying, well, what's the revenue of this thing and what's the you know, long-term value proposition for this. They're like, oh, okay, well, we're getting down to like the 30%. Friggin', it's over 5 days and it's in the green. It's a buy line, or it's going to hit its defense. Whatever these traders do. So I feel like a lot of that resistance is from traders trading charts, not like people's belief in those chains. As a contrary view to probably what other people might think.
I think that the reason that Atom has not gone down so much in price is entirely because of
Ben, it's really hard to hear you right now.
Sorry,
Yes.
I can bring it really close to my face. I've had to kind of like plug my phone in basically. Can you hear me okay?
It's
Yeah,
still
I think
a bit,
you might have had your hand like over your microphone or something. Is that still the case?
Sort of hot. Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
that's better for sure.
I can't believe you don't take a tripod to conferences for like ad hoc fucking.
I just worried that the hotel staff would think it was the OnlyFans.
Show me your feet, baby.
Oh, you have one. I didn't realize you had an OnlyFans.
I'll send you the link.
Me. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that was. Do we want to keep on this topic, or do you want to change it up into some
Can
news?
Can I tell you one typically Cosmos funny story?
Yes.
Just to derail things for a little bit. So we had a roundtable in the AZ room, and it was meant to be kind of Gnome talking about some of the work the Binary are doing around tokenomics, and it sort of was. But also, Sonny came in there to talk smack about what the AZ is. Jihan was fairly robustly defending it in relation to ICS. Spade was in there. The Duality guys were in there. Like loads of gigabrains. And at the end of the session, this like completely random bloke put his hand up and was like, "Can I just give an outsider's perspective? I run this company. We're valued at like $11 billion. I own about 0.2% of all Atom. And here's what I think." And just some thoughts, right? And literally everyone kind of goes, "Oh, okay, interesting." And nobody, not one person at the end of this thing thought, "I'll just follow him out the room and have a chat with him." I'll just like, because this guy is literally worth billions of dollars. And Atom is like the community, everyone in that room is more concerned with having a row than like getting the giga whale.
Did you? Sorry, he owns
Takes that dude out the
2%
room.
of what? Atom or Ethereum?
I would have slapped Erdeman if he didn't go say hi to him if he was in there. Like, go get him, get some staking, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like so he owns 0.2% of all Atom.
Of Atom, huh?
Like, but he also has an $11 billion company.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know,
Nice.
That's an instant go talk to the man.
Kudos.
Yeah, no doubt.
Period.
I would have fucking been like, he would have been walking out with me like holding onto his coattail.
Yeah, exactly right.
But no, yeah, like it's just I was like, this is crazy. This is so crazy. Like, I did eventually I did see some people like he ended up at dinner that I was at, and like people were trying to tap him up. But you know, he like when I introduced myself to him, I was like, "Oh, I'm Bendy from the Atom Accelerator, grant program," and he was like, "Oh, how much money can you give me?" I was like, "Well, I kind of wanted you to give me some, really." But I just I just thought it typified Cosmos. I just thought it typified Cosmos, where it's more about the row than the money.
Yeah, I tend to like agree with that sentiment, 100%.
So anyway, I think that sums up everything from Cosmoverse, and we can move on to something else.
Okay, well, all right. Schultzy and I are the only ones with access to the news, so you don't get the preview.
Oh no, I've got the spreadsheet. I can put wherever I want. Yeah, I got it, sent it. I've still got access to it. Rama doesn't let me though. He complains I'm messing up with his business model when I delete his comments.
So, well, I mean, the hot news for this week is the news researcher strike. So, Rama has put an on-chain transaction to our DAO that says if you don't pay me within 24 hours, we're on strike. So,
Really?
I don't know when he did that.
It actually says that? I just voted yes. Oh my! I need to pull
The memo on this transaction says you have 24 hours to pay your new researchers, or we go on strike. Now, I don't know how Rama became multiple people.
Can you
But-
form a union as a single person? Because it sounds like that's what's going on here.
He has formed the Researchers Union of Cosmos single-handedly, and probably the only person who cares about the outcome. So this was made on the 2nd of this month, which is October, now that I'm just looking. At 1851, I'm assuming that's my time zone. So 3 days later, still no pays. Shit. I'm surprised he didn't delete the news.
Wait, hold on a second. Where is this at? I can't see it on DAO.
Look, well, it's in the spreadsheet. There's the link to
is
the.
it?
Yeah, but it was sent to the DAO address. I don't know how we
Is
can
it
see.
like-
Is it like a memo field? Please, then
Yeah. Yeah, he sent us a ransom email in the memo field.
I mean, the
Oh, that's
idea
so
that anyone reads their memo fields, like, you know,
Like, when the fuck is someone going to implement messaging in the wallets?
Well,
Like-
Leap Wallet also has.
Hey,
Leap Wallet has, I believe.
Leap Wallet.
Yeah, I think
Who
so.
uses Leap Wallet?
Leap
I mean,
Wallet,
I like their interface. I've never used the wallet.
it's a great wallet.
Is it popular? Should I be
Fantastic
changing
wallet.
from Kepler?
Kepler's dead. Move to Leap.
Kepler.
Sanjeev and his team are incredible, and Leap is definitely the future.
Oh,
The
yeah?
Leap Wallet team really kills it. Like they're really
Yes,
responsive to feedback. They are very in tune with like what people want. It's a great team. Really enjoyable to work with. But I think they have it integrated.
And the
What
hub
is
will be
the-
buying them out pretty soon, I believe.
Is that
Who's
true?
buying them out?
I didn't know that.
Adam.
Oh, okay.
What is
Sorry,
the,
I'm just chatting shit.
what is the fate then of that other snaps? Who was
Oh,
doing the snap?
Mystic Labs. That's still going. That's going strong. They're doing all right. But it's like, they're trying to achieve different things. These guys, right? So, Mystic Labs is sort of the canonical MetaMask snap from MetaMask's point of view.
Hmm.
Whether that means that they will achieve, market share, or whether people do Leap, I don't know.
Well, I mean, Leap's first to market, right? You
They
can use
all
that
went.
right now.
They all went at the same time. 'Cause
Oh,
they
so
have-
the
Yeah.
other one's live?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
so I think it was. Go ahead.
No, go on.
Well, I think that MetaMask, like they whitelisted or like had a prep period, and then everything was released at once, right? So like
Yeah.
they all got ready, and then the floodgates were open
Yeah,
effectively.
Leap wallet slightly front run the kind of end of the moment that you could go in terms of their announcement, and they got a lot of traction out of that.
I will say, Secret had it going over a year ago. Like they had a MetaMask working over a year
Yeah.
ago.
I think what's interesting, certainly with the Mystic Labs one, it's the one I know the most about, is the fact that it is universal. So that whereas they were like, oh yeah, there are other ones that are just on one chain, but then what's the use of that? Like, yeah, it's cool if your chain has a very specific connection with like Ethereum, and that's cool. But if you're trying to bring some ETH into Cosmos and you don't want people to change MetaMask and you want them to go and buy a bad kid, then it needs to be one snap for everything.
Makes sense. So moving in. Oh, actually, this is conference related. So the Nomic founder got SIM swapped and doxed. Can you, from a man on the ground? What? So that was, well, I mean, that had nothing really to do with the conference, was it? It was just he got SIM swapped, which is
But it was a relief to see him like a lot.
Insecurity that like SIM.
It was
passcode.
great. It was great to see him like live and well at the event though, because I genuinely had this moment where I was like, has he just been kidnapped? You just don't know, right? Like at the point that all of his ID and stuff was just put out, it's quite scary.
Wow. That's
And then
Yeah.
and then a particular validator decided to take that tweet and put it in a GitHub repo so that it could stay there forever.
Would this be a validator that we all know? 'Cause I kinda
Notionally, yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say, that sounds like such a fucking Jacob thing to do.
Well, I mean, the man's also currently DDoSing the testnet of Atom, I believe.
Oh, that's what's happening right now.
I believe that's him, yeah. Because he's trying to prove his point, right? I mean, it's testing, I suppose, technically, but whatever.
So there's Jacob news in the news. There's Jacob goes on a rant about max block size bug, puts up a proposal to fix it by increasing hub blocks by 5 times the current block size. Sticks to his guns by saying that 1 meg blocks is better than 200 kilobyte blocks, even after the advisory from Amulet informing binary builders.
Yeah, like, oh, there's so much I can't say because it's like breaching other. No, because it's other people's opinions, and I'll tell you my opinion. My opinion is that this is fucking ludicrous, right? But it's their entire business model.
Yeah, I mean,
but imagine
it's a
being
winning business model, as it turns out.
Imagine being it's better, yeah, doing better than being holistically wholesome.
Doing better than most people right now.
I don't know how long it lasts. I feel like I mean, I just cannot imagine a world in which that ICF delegation stays, for example.
Can you speak to the ICF president thing that happened? So what exactly happened there? So Jacob wanted to be like the ICF president, right?
No.
Like we were going for council. Like what? Okay.
All
yeah.
right, okay.
That's why I need to explain because that's
yeah. I mean, I'm sure Jacob would love to be the president of the ICF. But so Brian Crane is now the president of the ICF. He used to be one of the vice presidents, I think. And Ethan is no longer the president. But they have also decided to kind of create or expand this council, and they've kind of publicly kind of opened for recruitment with that. And there are a number of candidates ranging from the sort of sublime to the ridiculous. Rama has put his hat in the ring. Jacob's put his hat in the ring. Jaquan has put his hat in the ring. Jaquan's hat has been thrown back out of the ring. I'm not quite so sure about the other two. But like, so there's this range of people that kind of think that they're going to save the interchain, and I'm not entirely sure what that group of people do within the ICF, but then I'm not entirely sure what anyone does at the ICF other than Rob, who is a fucking legend and does the kind of Twitter stuff. He's great. But there's a lot of other people, and I don't know what they do there. I did meet a very nice person who's like the new product manager for IBC. She seemed really nice. Don't really know what that means. I shouldn't have come on this after having so many drinks, but you're getting a lot of food. If I don't work in Cosmos after anymore, then this I will know why. The cartel have got me.
Well, now you can blame this instead of your 3-minute speech, right?
I can 100% guarantee you that the cartel does not watch this. Nor does any degrees of friends who know the cartel watch this. So you probably.
Well, I mean, I'm the closest, right?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're going to go and send them clips, you're probably safe.
Technically, I'm now Cito's boss, so I think that definitely makes me like the head of the mafia.
Ooh, that's scary.
It's an interesting take on a grant. Yeah.
Well, it's basically it's me that decides whether we continue to pay him each month, right?
Yeah. Can you pay us? We do stuff. We talk occasionally.
Yeah, sure. I genuinely. I mean, I don't know. I think I have personally, I have had tremendous value out of this podcast. I met
you and 7 other people who watched
it. I met the other person from chat. I met Less Harm.
Really?
He doesn't have a top hat. It really confused me.
Oh, that's a shame.
What did you say his name was? Lesan.
Yeah, do less harm, I think.
Cause less harm. Do less harm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He said Lesan. And I'm like,
no, I met.
No, cause less harm?
Causeless harm.
Yeah. Causeless harm, yeah.
Yeah, he comes to my
Causeless.
meditations. Yeah, he's super nice.
He's awesome.
Shout out.
So we traded shirts for stickers. I don't know what I'll do with the stickers, but I was delighted to give him a shirt. But he and he and I may meet in future for a beer, which is very exciting. But,
He's local to you.
Well, local enough.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay.
Local enough that we could consider meeting for a beer if we plan it. We might even persuade Dr. Frey to join us for a beer. That would be cool.
So
here's what I'll say about Dr. Frey. Speaking of people, like meeting people in person, I expected him to be way shorter than he is. He's like
100 foot tall.
Yeah, he's like a Goliath.
So in my head, he's 6'2".
He might be 6'2". He might be.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think he is like 6'2". Yeah, maybe even a little bit taller. So like he sent us it was a it wasn't a selfie. It was like a photo of him like holding the bean out in like the bush somewhere, and he made the trees look small. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
it was like,
that,
who is
I think,
this fucking giant standing next to this pond that I think was a lake?
Yeah, you just expect him to, like carrying a club, dragging a club behind him as well, for sure.
So
just the kid by the scruff of the neck dragging a fucking club.
Yeah, exactly right.
So I think once we've gone, it would be nice if we can try and get, like maybe there could be like a Game of Nodes Christmas party where we all kind of just try and like meet our respective like host or people from the chat that are near us, and we kind of get together and then try and do one where we're all drunk. That would be kind of fun.
That sounds like me and Bendy at the pub.
You and Rama?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and then me, Causeless Harm, Dr. Frey. That would work. Shotzi, I've got no idea if you have a local listener.
I mean, not super local. I would probably just head over to Pittsburgh. Uncle Dad and I would have a beer.
Uncle Dad, yeah. I wonder where Niels and Soy too. They said probably the States, I guess.
Soy?
Yeah, where's Soy from?
Soy could meet me for a beer.
Really?
I'm literally taking some Neutron stuff because he works for Neutron. So I'm literally taking him some Neutron stuff back from the conference to give to him. So
that'd be an interesting story. He works for Neutron. Is that a similar story to yours? Just being active in the community and then.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I told his story on a space one day, and he basically same thing. Like was just super active in the community, and then like I think Spade reached out to him and asked if he would get involved. I heard his story on one of like the Neutron X spaces or Twitter spaces, whatever, probably some months ago. Very similar, yeah. Just a community member who was highly involved.
Pretty sure my first time I saw Soy, and this might be wrong because this is a lot of people. I'm pretty sure they were just shit talking my validator on Twitter.
That sounds like Soy. Which I say affectionately.
My first interaction with Soy was he was just shitting on Polkadot, and he's like, all these guys, these Polkadot maxis going on about the Nakamoto coefficient. Like, and I was like, and I just started like answering him. I'm like, I'm not the technical guy who can tell you these things, but I was just like writing back, and we kind of had a little tiff. And then like I talked to him on a space, and now like I feel like we're buddies. But yeah, it was I love Soy. He's always got a great take every time I talk to him on a space.
It happens like that a lot. People are like, aggressively fucking voicing their opinion in some fashion, and then like, the person who's like, the target of that sometimes, engages with them, on a more level thing, like DMs or something, and say, hey man, like, this is the deal. And then I think a lot of friendships are born out of that initial aggression. I know that a lot of mine are. I know that like when I've done this at the pub as well, and sometimes people just don't like you, and they, don't like the cut of your jib for some reason, and then if you just like, I don't know. I've asked people like, you clearly don't like me. Like, why?
Is the answer jib? They're like, no, your jib's just not pleasant.
Your jib is fucking weird.
It's very strange.
I mean, it was on one occasion, this dude I was talking to, and he worked with my partner, and he just did not fucking like me. And I was like, well, why don't you like me? He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well,
can't really work on that
reason.
Yeah.
And then we we talked some more, and then we sort of left on reasonable terms, I guess. So that was nice. But
a good friend of mine, the first time I met him, I thought he was a complete arsehole because he was being an arsehole. Just turns out that he was a bit drunk, a bit more drunk than I was. And actually, when if you're the same amount of drunk or sober, like it's fine. But he was just being a bit of a dick that night. But I was just like, when you meet someone through some friends, I'm just like, I don't get why you're friends with this guy. He's a dickhead. And then it was like, and then it turned out that actually he's really sour.
Yeah. So my best friend's actually the same story. In college, he and I actively conflicted in almost every single class for the first 2 or 3 years of college. And then senior year rolled around and we're like, hey, do you want to play games? Yeah, all right. And we've basically either lived together or seen each other on a regular basis since. Like he lives a 5-minute drive from me. It's funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you get the same thing with romantic stuff as well, right? Where sometimes it's just some form of tension there.
So, speaking of tension, and I don't know how to say this, but this word, I'm pretty sure it's I'm pretty sure it's Chango, right? Chango goes after Jack Z, or Jack Zampolin, in a video with all his collaborations and calling him a weed which has embedded its roots into the ecosystem and he needs to be pulled.
That just makes me so angry. Like, say what you will about Jack and Strangelove. The one thing they're not is like a weed in the ecosystem. They have done so much good, and they're like the one team that I've seen actively trying to push effective things forward in the ecosystem. It's just I don't know why Jack's been has received a decent amount of hate over the last couple months. It really bugs me.
So I feel like over the years, Jack has been a net positive. He's a nice figure for the ecosystem as well. Like he's well spoken and he's polite, and he seems to try to at least in a public forum, try to take on criticism and then provide answers to that, responses to that. Other than that, I don't really know the dude too much. I don't know a lot of his specific contributions. I know that he gives a lot of contribution to IBC. How much of that's paid for, I don't know. But I mean, he seems to be a net positive contributor. I haven't seen the video. So I can't really comment on what's in it. Don't know if anyone else has.
I haven't seen the video either, but I'm more of just speaking about on Twitter in general. I've seen a lot of conflict and vitriol pointed towards Jack. Not so much Strangelove, just specifically Jack. And it just, I have no place to be his defender or whatever. I'm just peon number 7. Whereas Jack is a beacon in the ecosystem. So what am I really doing? Nothing.
So, sometimes people just like to shit on success to make themselves feel better.
But there's more. Yeah, I don't know.
But if this was, if you can infer that maybe this video was supported by, maybe another contributor to the ecosystem as a bit of a hit piece or something like that, then maybe you could see where that's coming from, I guess. But, you don't believe everything you watch on Twitter. Know that a lot of people who say shit on Twitter are paid to say shit on Twitter because they've got a little number under their name. So, yeah.
Because they have a number under their name? What?
Followers, man. Followers.
Followers. Okay, got it. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. I mean, paid shills are everywhere these day and age, and you have to like really, consider what you're taking to be gospel when you're looking at things on the internet.
That news story has been so hard for me because I've literally had to bite my tongue, and yeah, so I saw Jack after that video came out. I think he knows where it's come from, and I think he has a good idea about it. I don't think he's that particularly bothered, but it can't be nice to have what certainly he considers to be a paid hit piece put out about him. And I think it's a shame for the. I just think it's a shame for the ecosystem that we can't like act a bit more adult than that.
That's what I was going to say. There was a couple years back, I had a couple of developer friends that were looking to join the ecosystem, and we were going to develop a product which Jack actually knows about. Jack, he and I actually had a conversation around this, and they, after seeing like the Twitter activity, even back then, there was so much angst and anger and conflict that they were like, I'm not going to be a part of this. This isn't what I want to be a part of. So I don't know. Even more of it coming out, and I feel like we should just be past this at this point. Like, I know that all mature things will have some level of conflict, but why does it have to be so public and also so? I think condescending is really the word I want to choose here. Why does it have to be so condescending?
Bear market.
But this was before the bear market. It started before the bear market. Like we were deep in the bull market whenever I was trying to get some friends in.
Oh, okay.
And even then, they were like, "No, I'm out."
It just seems like it's bringing out the worst of everybody.
At
this point,
my take broadly is that I think that first generation Cosmos people have a lot of, for want of a better word, trauma from that AIB explosion and diaspora and unresolved issues towards each other and lack of trust. And it's not just like a Jay versus Ethan versus Zaki thing. I think it goes through all levels within that company. I think that's part of it, and I think that's infused a certain culture. I think there are kind of second generation Cosmos people that don't give off that energy, and I think that over time that will permeate through. I think, so if you look at the Duality lads, if you look at Spade at Neutron, if you look at the Stride guys, these are the teams I know the most and closest to. So just because I've worked with them more, the guys at Leap Wallet, like, they're just not doing that, and they're not interested in it, and they're shipping good work, and things are happening, and ultimately they're going to be the ones who win. And they're going to be the one, but it makes me insanely bullish on the ecosystem as a whole, because more people coming are that mentality, and what will happen is the people, those OGs just get effectively diluted over time. So that's not to shit on some of those OGs. Some of those are kind of like Cosmos heroes, and I feel like a total LARPer when I'm in front of them. Like, that's fine. But I just mean that, like, there's a culture that they have because of what happened that these other people don't have. And I think that really helps. I think there's still some stuff that needs to permeate through the community, but I'm really I think loads of that does happen. And I think it is, maybe I'm just naive, but I think it's getting better despite the bear market.
You know what? I think that I would agree. I think that it has gotten better. It seemed like what drama was on Twitter recently was one of our core components of this show for a long time. Like, what's the new drama this week, right? That was easy to say. And it's much more difficult to say now. Generally, if there's drama happening, like, there's a few core players, and we're like, that's kind of played out. I don't really want to talk about it. So, yeah, I'm going to have to agree.
I'm so glad we can be, a bit of hopium here.
The beacon of hopium.
That's right.
That should be our new shield. So we might have to drop the wholesome tag and become the beacon of hopium.
It is pretty good.
Yeah. So all right, let's fucking go to some other drama-ish type shit.
DPS.
Hey.
DPS.
Yeah, more DPS.
Someone had to explain that to me. I was like, "What's DPS?" I'm like, drama per second. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Do you know who claims to have coined that phrase?
No.
Who?
It's Jack.
Jack.
Yeah.
It was
So
definitely us.
He claims to have come up with it years ago because he did like lots of like RPG kind of stuff where you have the damage per second is a stat, and you just turned it. But yeah, he claims to have it. But I first heard it on Game of Nerds.
I like that. I coined a term, Schultzy. Have you coined a term?
I would say I have coined a term.
I coined degen Horcrux.
You did coin degen Horcrux, and that is like the canonical calling of it now.
It proliferated. I coined a term. I'm quite proud. Although, like, you know, my system gets quite a lot of criticism. There's a lot of warnings in that fucking guy.
There weren't that many warnings prior to that double sign on say, and then they were like, uh-oh.
Hey, you've read my original guide that I wrote, though, right?
For degen Horcrux? I don't know if I have.
On my GitHub? Oh, man, it is fucking full of warnings.
You told us about it when we talked, like when Lucky Friday, when we had that meeting with you, you were like degen Horcrux, and you told us about like the GitHub and everything.
Yeah,
I just think the word degen at the start of a like system is a warning in itself. You really don't need much more than that, right?
That's a great point.
So we have another remaining item. Well, two in the news. So okay, I'm reading this because it's long. The only .dot user on Cosmos was wrecked by the canonical dot due to Composable Bridge being down for maintenance for 10 days and people buying dot without the ability to arbit. The Composable team didn't inform the community their bridge was down, let alone being minimum viable product in beta stage.
Is that you, Funky? Are you the user of dot on Cosmos?
No. Well, let me say, this is interesting. This is really interesting. So if you guys saw, we did something where like Jessica Cosmos, you guys may know her. She used to work for Flipside. She now works for us at Lucky Friday. She's our senior software ninja. So she and I basically wanted to do something where we were going to, for a Teddy Dow, like where we're going to give to charity. And so we did a double thing. She donated a bad kid. I donated my one bad kid, and we were going to do it for charity. So I even brought this to the attention of the Composable Labs team. I'm like, yo, like there's a significant like problem between like, if I try to switch to the Cosmo dot instead of the Axel dot, like it's way off, like a massive arbitrage opportunity. So like I even pointed this out to them. And that's what I don't understand. Like then I started seeing the stuff about Lavana and how they like wanted to force people to use the Cosmo dot, or though I guess like I was told it's IBC dot for whatever reason, instead of the Axel dot, which is much more liquid. And I'm like, why are they forcing people to use it? And I didn't even know that the bridge was down until like I started seeing all the posts about it on X. So no, admittedly I just use the stuff, the Axel dot from Axelar, because I can just like port it right over to Moonbeam, and then I donated to the Teddy that Lewis, he ended up winning. So I probably would be the one person using dot in the ecosystem, because I mean, I'm not gonna lie, as a fan of both, I wouldn't mind like doing some kind of LP with Adam and dot. But yeah, this whole like thing was it was a black eye, really, I think on the CL team, that they hadn't told anybody that the bridge was down. And I've had friends who have tried to use it and said it's like 15 clicks and then their shit just gets stuck. Like they don't know what to do. So, you know, like as someone who just is, if I'm a maxi on anything, it's an interoperability maxi. Like, and I feel like that's where this is all heading, right? Like to your point, Benny, where you were saying much earlier in the episode, like not one chain is going to win. I feel like it's just going to be a bunch of chains talking to each other. And I don't care if it's IBC or whatever it is that connects us all. I don't care. Like just make it happen. And so that's why, like, I was personally still, I guess, kind of bullish, but it's interesting seeing sort of the Cosmos landscape become more leery about the Composable team, because the dot like side of the fence has always held them at like an arm's length after all the Zach XBT stuff and everything else. And then now it seems like the few X spaces I've been on, like did one with Don Kryptonium, and we kind of like co-hosted it and asked a lot of tough questions of Omar and everything else. And so this whole thing is is really interesting right now for me as someone who likes both ecosystems. But I'm curious what you guys like, what's your take on all this and how this is played out, and like what's your take on the bridge being down and not being able to do the arbitrage and everything else?
I mean, so I don't think that we knew too much about the composable team because like we're not part of the Polkadot ecosystem, right? So all we knew was there was this team. Now, granted, like I kind of know the history of that bridge, right? That bridge started being written by Sheldon from Octopus, and the composable team took credit for it. And so I was already kind of leery about it there.
Is that Sheldon who's now at Notional?
Sheldon's like the big near guy. He like Octopus is somehow related to Substrate. Like there's a kind of close connection or kinship with like some of the stuff that's been written on Polkadot. Like I don't understand all the intricacies of it, but yeah, there's.
Well, so Octopus kind of turns near into Polkadot in the sense that you can create substrate chains off of near, like doing kind of using Polkadot's kind of system of security. And so Sheldon had developed basically IBC for that to connect the Cosmos, and then the composable team found it and then used it.
Did not know that.
But I don't think that it is Sheldon that joined Notional. I would be very surprised if that were the case.
They seem to have quite a few people now. But yeah, I mean the bridge being down is not like, in my opinion, such an issue, because like all this stuff that hopefully they should be communicating when stuff's like MVP and beta. But yeah, I mean the biggest issue I see there in that news is that they didn't communicate it to anyone. And it sounds like they didn't, make an effort on the bridging site to make it known that it is down. So like, if I was the product manager for that, and your product was down, I would have the splash page just blurred out with a sign on it that says the bridge is currently down for maintenance or whatever it is. We'll be back. Check again in like fucking 3 weeks.
Yeah, my view is that someone got wrecked because they're shit at that, like basic customer care. Someone's lost money because they haven't done their job properly, and they, like there was a really nice guy from the composable team doing the rounds, kind of, see what support there was, and kind of spoke to me. Not that I matter, but he doesn't know that, right? He just walks in and I'm the guy ripping the hub. But he was like, "Oh, are you, supportive?" And like as a Brit, it's really hard to just sort of, I'm just basically want to politely say, "Go away, don't come back. Like, please don't." Like I've been terrified of composable for a long time. I remember I was on a call with Rama and someone else, and we were like, it's weird that Jack's like willing to trust his baby with this team. Like, and like at the time I just thought, oh well, if Jack thinks that this is a good idea, he must be seeing something that I don't, and he's must think they're great builders, right? Like that's where my head was at. I'm less certain now, and and this isn't a dig at Dot at all, but like the bridges obviously that everyone's most interested in with IBC is the ETH stuff, and we've got 3 teams working on that. Composable is one of them. There are 2 others.
So, an interesting thing with user experience and bridging is that I'm pretty sure DYDX is close to their V4 chain launch. And
really
I read somewhere, hey?
Really close.
We're close.
So I read somewhere that that they have like a bunch of ecosystems with like one-click bridge straight into their platform, which I think is pretty cool. And
That's really cool.
I don't know if that will like make them a bit of a hub for, bridging assets. I don't know what bridges they're using, but yeah, I mean, if there's just like a one-click bridge solution, you click your button and it appears on their because one thing for DYDX that's crucial is user experience, and you don't want to materially change it from what people know and like at the moment. And it's already going to be like a pill to swallow for people to know that they're sending their stuff away from, Ethereum or wherever the fuck they've got it, Arbitrum. But the fact that I'm pretty sure, and I could just be spouting bullshit now, but I'm pretty sure they're integrated with a bunch of wallets, and that, you don't have to change your experience at all. You just one-click bridge over into their ecosystem still, just the way you do it now. It's just that it's, they've abstracted away the bridging.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'll just say this, like Squid Router, I think it does a fantastic job of being able to pull stuff from Cosmos, Polkadot, whatever. Like it just, you might have to manipulate a little bit more. Like, I'm going to go from this chain. I'm using this asset to this chain and this asset. You might have to wait for a few minutes, but like it seems as if these things are becoming more common in terms of how easy they are to use. And it may be more than one click, but like when you're actually like, the one signature you're giving in your MetaMask or whatever, it seems like it's becoming easier and easier by the day to bridge over stuff to another ecosystem. Like that's what happened when Lewis won the thing for the bad kids to send them money. Like, even though I couldn't use the Cosmo dot and I used the Axelar dot, it was super easy. Like I was just like, okay, I'm coming from this chain, I'm coming here. And then just like I withdrew it and it was right there and I could swap to Glimmer and it was very easy. So, I think that some of the apprehensions that we all have about bridges are eventually going to disappear, especially if they become more IBC focused, just knowing how that system is set up to be, for the most part, trustless. So I don't know. I'm very like hopeful, I guess, for lack of a better word, about just some of these bridging solutions and the way that we'll be able to connect ecosystems together.
Do you know what I think is probably like some of the biggest untapped bridging liquidity is sexes? Like, what if Binance created a bridge that just natively, like, I mean, USDC everywhere, right? They do? Because if they used to,
they brought it down like 2 years ago.
Well, I mean, that would make a lot of sense if they had like, the ability in their API to do that somehow with different interfaces. Just send your fucking like, even if they're using Zero Auth or something like that through a wallet, and you can just send your USDC from a Ethereum wallet address to like a Noble wallet address, and it just appears there in a very short amount of time.
It was sweet. It was really cool to use.
I wonder why I guess they weren't making any money out of it.
Yeah, probably not. I think people started using it for the problem was people started using it as a way to get it off of their exchange and using decentralized market makers. Yeah. So they were like,
they haven't enabled IBC, right? Like they don't want IBC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, isn't Binance Smart Chains joining IBC, so they can't be that far against it. Yeah. Which is going to be interesting, because then there will be 2 native USDCs available on Cosmos, because there's a native DC on Binance Smart Chain.
Isn't the Binance Smart Chain a fork of the Cosmos chain, like the SDK?
Yeah, it's built on the SDK, like a very early version of it. Yeah.
I didn't know
Shelty is just fucking grinding gears here. He's like working through this.
I didn't know they were enabling IBC.
Yeah, I didn't know they were either. I thought that they were like so far behind that it'd be really difficult for them to do. And their developers, my understanding, aren't exactly
good.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right, blog.cosmos.network IBC is finally landing on BSC.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
did read it. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose a blog isn't, from the horse's mouth, but it's as close as it's going to get.
Well, Cosmos.network, that's like more or less official, right, Bendy?
I think that might be the ICF. So, who knows?
5 days ago by Toki. So, yeah, I mean, it seems real.
Well-known member of Cosmos.
Here's a comment about our work from Jack Zampolin. Trust minimized interoperability across blockchain's ecosystem is greatly needed. And I was fucking nothing about it. Oh, hang on. So from Jack, which I'm greatly excited about the contributions from Toki and Data Chain, which are expanding IBC's reach to non-Cosmos SDK chains such as Ethereum and BSC. I'm looking forward to seeing their ongoing contributions to IBC. Yeah, the only thing is I think BSC was built on the SDK, but like I said, a very old version.
Well, so BSC and the Binance chain are different. BSC is a fork of Ethereum. So this is
BNB Smart Chain is a different,
Yeah, so this is an entirely different thing. Interesting. Okay.
Okay, yeah, BNB Smart Chain.
So, but is this the guys that left Composable?
I don't know who Toki is.
I don't know if this is Union. I wonder if it is. I'm not sure.
It says Toki and Data Chain. I don't know who Data Chain is. Today, Toki is excited to announce that IBC is finally landing on BSC. As many of you might know, according to DeFi Llama, BSC is the third largest blockchain network in the world by TVL. So this represents a significant milestone for IBC. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm pretty sure BSC, let me look up the USDC.
I'm so glad we've all got our finger on the pulse here, though. Good.
I know, I'm kind of blown away. And second, that Tron is apparently the second biggest chain for DeFi. That seems...
That's just because Justin's like minting fake shit.
That's what I was going to say. That doesn't
Look
seem...
at the USD debacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll only know that the bear market is over once that shit's, unwound. So there's a lot more pain to come.
Bendy, don't be so British, damn it.
Well, what do you want me to say?
No, I expect you to say that. Just the uber pessimist.
Well, look, I'm in Frey's little spot. I have to basically say, look, boys will be boys, but it's all going, we're all fucked lads.
So looking at this, looking at the Circle multi-chain listing of where they have native USDC, it does not appear that BSC is on the list, but I 100% was on a centralized exchange the other day and saw it as an option for